My guest today on In the Tradition, I get to hang out with the internationally renowned double bassist and cellist composer, bandleader, and two-time Grammy winner. With 2,221 recording sessions under his belt, it makes him the most recorded jazz bassist in history. France has bestowed upon him the medallion and title Commander of the Order of the Arts and Letters, and he has been elected to the Downbeat Jazz Hall of Fame. Please welcome Mr. Ron Carter.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whoever you are.
You know, you hit the ground running at the age of 22 and playing for Chico Hamilton. Then you freelanced with Jaki Byard, Cannonball Adderley, Randy Weston, Bobby Timmons, and Thelonious Monk. What did you learn from playing with such greats at such a young age?
We only have a half hour, so I'll make it short. I learned so many things. I learned how to be a band leader. I learned how band leaders work the house, how they understand the audience. I learned how they pick the library for the night. I learned how they decide what the order is. I learned how they decide who gets the solo. I learned how they figure out who doesn't get the solo. I learned how they manage to make someone feel that they're playing too long and not embarrass them. I learned how to get there in time for the gig. I learned how to talk to the club owner, to the manager. I watched them how they treated the waitresses and the waiters who helped them fill this place. I learned how to watch those guys dress and their attitude toward the look of the band. And there's about 25 things more, but that's plenty to learn at 22.
How do you see your work as it relates to the tradition of jazz?
I don't mind being held partly responsible for it. I've made records by that title. I happen to have this record, the CD. They call them CDs.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, they do.
I don't mind showing this CD or the title of what I'm happy to be a part of. It says In the Jazz Tradition.
Uh-huh.
I'm happy to be one of the guys who's carrying that flag. Me and 8,500 other guys. Uh, I think we do have responsibility to maintain the historical notations, the historical nobility, the historical presence of this music, not just for my generation, but for succeeding generations who somehow have gotten out of the historical mindset. And things that seem new have already been done by somebody else 30 years before.
Mhm.
And I think if the younger generation would kind of tie into that connection, they'd have much more fun discovering stuff.
You know, I know you have a very distinctive sound that, like most players of your generation, when you came along, everybody had their own sound that kind of got morphed when smooth jazz came out
Hmm.
and everybody started sounding alike. Was your
Hmm.
sound innate or did you have to develop it?
Both. I came along at the time when there was Randy Weston. I worked with him for a year, and then that band was Cecil Payne, who you may know from the day, a wonderful baritone saxophone.
Yes.
And Cecil Payne came along when there were four other major saxophone players playing baritone. Jerry Mulligan, he had Pepper Adams, he had Leo Park up in Boston, Serge Charloff, Jerry Mulligan. They all had their own sound. Here's this person who lives in Brooklyn who sounds like some Cecil Payne, you know? I said, wait a minute, if it's possible for Cecil to play the same horn those guys are playing
Mm.
and get such a personal, easily identified sound as neither one of those five guys, how does he do that? And by fooling around and not being happy, not being satisfied with being in someone else's sound neighborhood, so to speak, I tried different strings, tried different approaches to playing the strings. I changed strings, you know, and I decided, whoa, what was that? I look around and, hey man, that's me. Well, whatever me did, me got to do it again. And every night I decided that when this bass comes out of that case, it's got to sound like that, like it did last night. and I'm still working on it.
You know, I first became acquainted with you when I was building my CTI collection, and I bought your
Mm,
Blues Farm back in 1973.
yeah,
And that album right there, you know, along with the covers and the art that Creed put on it,
yeah.
but your sound just made me a lifelong fan. And I,
Thank you.
you know, became really acquainted. Having played through all the decades, do you have a favorite decade of when you were performing?
Well, they all offered me a different level of growth.
Mhm.
I meet different people in the area. I mean, as a matter of fact, I had to look forward to recording with Louis Armstrong, as a matter of fact. And I met him at a recording session with Alvin Nelson. We were recording Alvin in New York with Johnny Hodges as being the feature of Oliver's band,
Mhm.
Alvin Nelson. And I think Leon Thomas was on that same record, a really good record. And Mr. Armstrong came in to meet the band because he was going to record with the same figuration uh, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I left for Europe, and Mr. Armstrong passed away shortly, so I never got a chance to do that. But I'm interested in playing with whoever plays good music, man. You know, I want to know what is it you need to make you feel that you hired the right guy, whatever genre you're from, whatever your thing is. My job as a freelance bassist is to play your thing like I belong there. So while not having a favorite genre, I like to think that I can make everybody's genre sound like I belong in there.
You know, going back to your recordings, 2,221 recording sessions definitely speaks to your character as well as your ability. What is it about you, besides your playing, that has you getting the first call for so many musicians to record with?
Well, that's an easy answer. If you just call up those 2,215 people, they would tell you why they call me. And I'm a little embarrassed because there's about 85, 90 more than that over the past few years. But I think, I was always surprised when I got calls from people who were not necessarily a part of the jazz community. And those people who would call me, I trust that they listen to a lot of choices to make their project get to where they thought it could be. And they invited me to be a part of this process to make their project reach their level of satisfaction. And I hope that I satisfied enough different people, enough different times, that my name got around town as a guy who could do what the job requires and still leave some of his imprint in the band when he left. So let's try this guy, see if he's still available. And fortunately, I was able to more than once deliver what the job required. And establish some really great relationships with people who are not beboppers
Mm.
or jazz people. You know, and that was important to me. I want to know how you guys think of those arrangements. How do you come up with those order of changes? And how do you decide who plays this specific style good enough for you to think they can help your project, even though they may not be part of your jazz or your music community. You know, he may not be a guy who plays with folk singers all the time, but if he helps your process, you got to hire this person, whoever he or she is.
Mm.
You know, or if you want some background for one of the pop acts, just some good long notes and in tune. Who can do that for you? Who's been known to play down the lead real fast? Can he
Right.
help you there with your project? And I feel comfortable enough to say that those people who chose me for their jazz as well as non-jazz projects felt that whatever I bring to the date would be the kind of spice that they needed for their project. And I've always tried to leave that feeling. I gave them all I had, hoping it was enough to satisfy them for the make the choice, the right choice they made to hire me.
Cool. You know, being in the audience all the time, or you know, when I was on the air, just listening to, constantly listening to music, you hear the conversation between musicians, whether you're recording or performing. Is there ever any anticipation of where the music is going to go as you play?
Um, uh, Carl, can I wait, Carl?
Yeah.
Okay, Carl. One of the things the bass player is supposed to do is dictate that.
Uh,
I've tried to be the one who dictates where the band is going to go with the music, hoping I have the right instinct and I'm reading the band, so to speak, accurately enough to know that the band is willing to go the way I've decided that I wanted to go for this song. Uh, so I'm kind of listening in panoramic sound.
Hmm.
I'm listening completely like this. I'm trying to pick up enough of each of these individual attempts to talk to me musically to decide what their interest is. But some bands are really harmonically daring, Some really kind of need the roots all the time. Some like to play a certain kind of weight to the beat. Some want to like air and stuff. My job is Carl, is to figure that stuff out after the first tune has gone by the board.
Hmm.
So I like to think that the bass player is the quarterback of all those things. He may not be the band leader, or he or she may not be the band leader, but he's leading the band.
You know, I
And I think bass players can do that.
I read some liner notes to a Frank Sinatra box set, and in there, I think it was Gary Giddens who wrote it, or it might have been Nat Hentoff. I'm not sure. Um, but he asked Lester Young, Miles Davis, and I want to say Sean Jones, if I remember correctly, how they prepare to play a ballad, and each one gave him the same answer. They said they listened to Frank Sinatra. How do you prepare to play a ballad?
Well, assuming that it's not calling off the top of the band leader's head, first time for
Mm,
everybody. Assuming we know the library. Yeah, I try to make sure that I understand the melody, what it is. Try to make sure that I know the changes to the tune, that I know the form of the song, and I'm willing to trust my instinct to get to a certain place where the band leader is going before he or she gets there.
okay. And that's interesting. You said you know the melody. I was talking to Galen McKinney the other night, and she
Mm.
said when you gave her your red drumsticks. Oh no, that wasn't you. That was Max Roach. I'm sorry, my mistake. But Max told her to know the melody.
You got to do that, man. There's no way that I can help anyone sound any way that I may help them sound better if I don't know the melody that they're supposed to be
Mhm.
dealing with. Oftentimes when you're in these jam sessions and you're sitting in for somebody or just filling in, but the band leader is someone will call a tune,
Mhm.
and someone say, "Oh yeah, I know that song," and you get to the bridge, it's like this. Well, I can't help that. I'm okay. I got a pretty good bass line. I got a pretty good idea, but with that kind of sound, all I can do is cross my fingers and hope that you get out in time so I can do the last eight. You know, uh, but knowing the melody is critical. You can't get by without knowing the melody and what changes to make this melody work.
Mhm. Now, I grew up in an era uh, after you, but it was an era when you got dressed up to go out for the evening to listen to music. You are one of the best dressed musicians when you're on stage, but
Thank
your
you.
albums covers exhibit a wide range of styles. How would you describe or define your sense of fashion?
Um, well, I like to. I think that when, well, I give an example. In my groups, and I have four or five, three or four of them, the big band and octet and trio quartet duo. When we go on the stage, Carl, we stop and take a bow.
Hmm.
I want the audience to understand that we acknowledge that we're coming to work as a group,
Hmm.
and we are dressed like that work, like that group coming to work. These suits we wear, these matching ties, these shine shoes. This is part of our outfit for work. I'm trying to establish a level of attention with them by way we're looking. And as Art Blake used to say, they see you before they hear you.
Hmm.
Well, okay. Uh, I'm not necessarily saying that's how I feel about it, but clearly we make an impression with how we dress. And I've always felt that I'm not coming from the gym.
Hmm.
I'm not coming from any other place in my home where I've carried the bass. I've got the concept in my head for the set. Got my plan worked out in my head for the tunes. I'm dressed like I'm going to work, man. And the audience as relaxed as they are with their attire. They like seeing band on the stage dressed up. They feel that this band is dressed up to play for them,
Mm.
and that they're partially correct. You know, and I like looking good. Besides,
I feel you. I know what you mean. There's nothing like dressing up. It just lifts your spirits and just makes you feel good
that's
about the
correct.
world, when you step out the
You
door.
feel special.
You know,
Absolutely.
I was, doing some research on you and ran across your website, and I noticed you have one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite movies, the Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton vehicle, The Sandpiper, and you have
Yeah.
the Johnny Mandel song, The Shadow of Your Smile
hmm
playing. What
hmm
made you choose that song to put on your website?
Well, it's interesting how that song came to be. That I even knew it about 1964 or so. I was working in Boston with I think Tony Williams and Gabor Sabo and Charles Lloyd. I get a call from this person named Eddie Harris.
Mhm.
He says, "We're doing a date in New York." Listen, I'm talking to him like Thursday from the hotel. He's somewhere, not in New York yet. He said, I'm coming to New York on Monday, and we're making a record with me, you, Billy Higgins, and Cedar Walton. I said, "Oh, man, that's a jackpot." He said, "But we have a problem right here." I said, "Oh, man, no jackpot." He said, we want to do the Sandpiper theme from the movie." I said, "Okay, I don't know that song." He said, "Well, what you got to do is a showing in town at the theater. You got to copy that song down and bring it in to the session on Monday." I said, "Wow. I haven't transcribed something in a very long time, let alone a song in the dark in, in, in the, in the movie theater, you
Mhm.
know?" I said, "Okay." I said, "Wow." I'm saying, "Oh." I should have said, "Wait a minute." So I go to the theater, we had afternoon off between the afternoon. So I go into the theater on the Berkeley Square in Boston. I take my little manuscript paper and a flashlight. And in the movies, they just play parts of the melody. It's not always like we hear it on the recording. It's a little bit here and a little bit there. And so I'm in the theater and I'm with my pen, my, and my pen in my mouth, my flashlight in my mouth, and I'm holding the, a, the back of a shirt, cardboard, and a piece of paper, trying to write this melody down that comes like 8 notes at a time. Then this conversation and stuff. And it comes over here again, and I'm trying to put together this mess. Oh man, how close is this? The lines are. I'm notes in the wrong place. It's dark, and I'm getting uncomfortable in the theater writing this stuff out. In the theater, the guy's gonna say, am I stealing something from the?" So I said, "Okay, we'll let that go." So I wrote something down that worked. So I got to get to New York. I get to the hotel after the movie, and I finally figured out the bits and pieces of how it's supposed to go because I'm all over the place. Got some written out here, some written out there, and the arrow and stuff like that. And so I took it to New York to the date, and Eddie Harris thanked me for bringing in the lead sheet, not telling what it took to get it there, and recorded it. And it was really a nice version. This is the first jazz version of "The Shadow of Your Smile.
Mhm.
And then when I put the quartet together, we were looking for songs to play and nice themes, and someone said, "Hey man, you know that song Shut Up Your Smile?" I said, "Do I know that song Shut Up Your Smile? Do I know that song Shut Up Your Smile?" "Yes, I do." "Well, let's add it to the band library." I said, "Well, okay." And results is that record we made with I Remember Miles, Dear Miles, I think, and that's the
Mhm.
so, so the guy when he's assembling the website, he said, "Hey, Mr. Carter." I said, "Yes." "How about this for the opening?" I said, "Well, I already know how it sounds like. That's okay. It's not a newer version. We did it for a while." I said, "But it sounds like that's a nice opening thing." I said, "Well, if it won't cost any more to put it in there, put that sucker in there, man." And it's been there ever since, and it's got a lot of nice response to a nice way to open the
Yeah,
website.
it really is, and it's inviting, and especially if you see the movie,
Yeah,
the California shoreline and just the water and the sunsets and the lyric just kind of pulls you in. So
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
great song. And also,
yeah. I met him out in California recently, before he passed away, of course, and he was very happy that I was the first version of that song that he really appreciated hearing.
wow, I almost got a chance to meet him, um, but of course the pandemic
Yeah,
whole
cut everything
show,
down. a really nice man too,
Is
man.
he? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, he was.
Just
Yeah,
listening to some of his music, you kind of know that, especially,
he's okay.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's okay. He's the guy you want to know. Absolutely.
It's like Alan and Marilyn Bergman.
Yes.
One,
Yeah, they write great lyrics. Those lyrics to those Michelle Grant songs
right?
are really quite
Yeah,
amazing.
they really are. I also noticed you had a couple of my favorites in your songbook. The Great Big Band.
Yes, yes.
How did you put that all together?
That was look again. I was my friend Bob Friedman, who did the arrangements for that, did some arrangements for the small group and the octet on my previous records. And this partner, this lady he knew in Boston, had a foundation, and she knew Bob's music from being in Boston when he was going to
Mm,
Berkeley. And she thought he was a great arranger who didn't have a project. And she was funding this foundation. So she asked Bob, "Well, can you put together a big band that I will fund for you and give you a record under your name with the Bob Freeman Big Band?"
oh,
He said, "Wow." Yeah, he's kind of stunned. I said, "Bob, get over it. You got a chance to do something." He said, "Well, I'll do it on one condition." I said, "What?" He said, "Will you put the band together?" I said, "Absolutely. But you got to write some good music, man. No fooling around. Otherwise, it's not going to." I said, "Ronald, I'll take care of that part." Okay, so I put the band together, and the result is a great big band. It's a lovely record, man. And Bob was really a fantastic
yeah.
writer. Yeah, I miss him dearly. He left the concert too soon, too. Nice man.
You also have a couple on there with Houston Person.
Yes. Yeah. We did a Valentine's Day concert, the stream, February 14th, I guess it was. And boy, he's still playing as great as ever. He got a big fat sound, and I often get dismayed that the younger generation has not given him any 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 serious listening to find out how he's able to do what he does. You know, I mean, he knows all the verses, man. He knows all the right original keys. He knows the complete melody, and whatever tune he calls, he says it because he knows the song. You know, and while I'm okay for everyone writing their own material, that means that all new songs in the libraries they get started with that kind of concept of a new song a night, a new song a week. That makes the library get bigger, more diverse, there are more choices. But I think that's all built on something before this new song.
Mhm.
And Houston knows all those old songs that I get a chance to play once every 6 months. You know, and I treasure playing with him because again, I'm going to school free.
Mhm.
I know that song is supposed to go. I know a guy who, if I play the wrong note, he sees what it is. It's not a wrong note, but a different chord that he knows. He'll trust my judgment to fix it for the next chorus. I admire him to no end, and I would wish that if I could give all saxophone players a gift for Christmas, it'd be a track from any one of our songs for their Christmas under their Christmas tree, because it's worth a worthwhile gift to give any saxophone.
Yeah, I met him and his wife Etta back in the '90s, and just had a wonderful conversation with both of them. They brought just, like you said, we're lifelong students. So no matter
Yeah, absolutely.
what you talk about, you're always learning something, gleaning something from somebody who's been there before you.
Yeah, that's what history is built on, and somehow we kind of lose that with all the modern conveniences of iPhones, iPhone 8 and iPhone 9 and OS. We kind of miss that ability to connect with something before iPhone.
Right.
And I think that's part of what we're missing. I think maybe with this um, intermission we're on, called the
Mhm.
pandemic, right? We're on the intermission right now. Maybe that's given us a chance to look back at what we missed being so advanced. So having so many great things to come with right away, and in 2 minutes it's done, and you're okay with that. It's just kind of strange, and for as uncomfortable it has made most of us. A lot of us learned a lot of new things that we wouldn't have had time to do.
Mhm.
So, like them, I'm upset that we're not playing. I haven't played with my friends, man, over
Right.
14 months. I miss those
Yeah,
guys,
I understand.
and I hope they miss me.
Yeah. Uh,
But having said that, the feeling is I need these guys to help me get better.
mhm.
and I missed the chance to get and do that with Irene and James and Peyton, Russell and Donald and Nanette and Big Band and Doug. They're the lifeblood of music.
Hmm.
And right now, I'm missing that opportunity to get these ideas here out and give it to them, and we'll see if it works tonight. Well, maybe September, October, when the band and clubs get opened up, and we'll be able to sit down and then give them an air hug, a serious handshake, and say, "Where you been, man? Let's get to work." I'm looking for that day.
Well,
Carl.
from your mouth to God's ears, let's hope that'll happen.
Yeah, God is
You know,
good
because I
too.
miss the old days of pulling the album out the cover and sitting there and listening to the music and reading the liner notes. You know,
Yeah, and grown up print
right?
size.
Exactly. Um, you know, who are you bringing with you to the festival this fall, and what can we expect?
The quartet. The quartet with Irene Rosnes on piano, Jimmy Green saxophone, and Peyton Crossley on drums. We looking for sometime in the
Mm,
fall. You know,
uh,
excuse me a moment. When everything starts to open up and people are comfortable with those kind of indoor size audiences, sometime this fall. And we talked about the other day that we can't wait to get together where it is,
mhm.
whenever it is. So I'm having them hold that calendar for me for the fall, starting August on down through the end of the year to fill it up with some of the work we missed. And where you are, we hope to get down there and play some of those people down there.
Are you going to be bringing something new for us to hear, or are you going to mix it up, some old, some new, or
It's all new, man. As old as it is, it's all
okay,
new.
cool, cool.
That's our job, to make old stuff feel like it belongs there.
Um, do you see anytime in the future a new group of standards being made? Like everybody wants to play, like the old Miles Davis and the old, like Oliver Nelson, and but do you see new standards being created?
Yes, I don't hear them because, again, this is right now we don't hear
Hmm.
anything but our own thoughts. I'm sure once this gets over and we start to go out and hear people and they're playing more open physically because they have more space to get up, and I'm sure we will hear some thoughts that hadn't occurred to most of us. And it's these new thoughts that make another layer on the history of music
Hmm.
and the size of the bands in the library. Get bigger. I'm anxious to see what those guys are writing now. I mean, I don't know their names. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they play. All I know is, Carl, that somebody's sitting on there writing some tunes that I should know about
And I'm sure.
and that I'd want to add to my
Mhm.
library. All I got to do is get out of the house and go down, walk 25 feet to the subway and go hear somebody play and see what I can take home. It's been made now, Carl. We just don't have a chance to hear it.
Um, who are you listening to these days?
Right now, Carl, I've been listening to the Brandenburg Number Three. It's a classical piece that I did a bass line on that I'm appreciating the effort I put in 20 years ago. Now that I have nothing else to do but listen to those kind of records, those ages. That's kind of caught my fancy because I think that if Bach were alive today, he would say, "Gee, how would you guys think of that kind of stuff?" And it's a nice record, Brandenburg Number Three. And I've been listening to also this the other day. I was doing an interview, and the person asked me about organ groups in Harlem back in the 50s and
Mm,
60s, which is when I came to New York.
mm,
And one of the people who I made records with was Dr. Lonnie Smith, who was a really fantastic player.
yes.
Yeah. And one of the records I made with him and Eric Gale on guitar and Grady Tate and Houston Person
Hmm.
is this record here called In the Jazz Tradition.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know that album. Yes.
So I've been listening to this because Houston and Eric just a great way to sit down and listen to some music of guys who know how to make music
Now,
in the jazz tradition.
what was the connection with them? Did you see?
They just played great, man, and we all felt the
Oh,
same thing. I mean, we had no rehearsals. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, and I'm not sure that they had this combination had played together
mhm.
before. I played with all of them at different times. Eric and Grady with CTI Records, Houston with the Duo Records, Ronnie Smith with his projects. We'd all played together individually, but never collectively. And it just seemed the time was right for this group of guys to get together and make some music that we all remember back in the day. So we were reminiscing and playing at the same time, but at the club on Count Basie's on 132nd and Big Apple and Brankers, all the uptown clubs at the time, they were really happening. And we all played in all of them. 3 shows a night, you know, fat. You parked your car, you couldn't get out till everybody left at 4 o'clock in the morning. But just a great time, And this record reminded us all about those days before the Village Vanguard was happening and before the Birdland was really hot. These places uptown were the hotbed of music, and we all remember those times. We missed them. Having said that, I think it's time for us to kind of say good night to everyone. Good afternoon, goodbye. And Carl, I don't get a chance to talk this time of day. Right now, I'm usually teaching private lessons.
Okay.
So thanks for breaking up my groove, and it's nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure meeting you, Ron. It's been fun.
Thank you. When we get down to this fall, I expect to see you not quite in the front seat, but backstage to say hello to all of us because we know who you are, and I'll be looking out for you.
Without a doubt, I will make that happen.
Okay.
Thanks
Done
for
deal.
joining me.
Thank you.